I'll start in 3, 2, 1, go. So the reset at the very beginning is just to set up a little bit of RNG manipulation. So Kirby's Adventure, the beginning of the run will start with a mix, and the reset and some of the strange movement is just so that the Waddle Doos will walk towards me as quickly as possible. And what inhaling both those Waddle Doos gives what's called a mix wheel. So if you saw my Amazing Mirror run earlier, similar concept, you inhale two enemies that give abilities, and they will start what's called a mix wheel. With proper timing, you can essentially land on whatever ability you want. And that's going to be a 4-frame window. And the most powerful ability is going to be Tornado, and this run's going to feature quite a bit of it. The way that Tornado works is that once you start it, it goes for a specific amount of time, and you can control left and right, but to control whether it goes up or down, you hold B for it to rise, and let go of B for it to sink. And Tornado is obviously very good for horizontal movement, and that's also good for a couple of mini-bosses. We'll get to that a little bit later. This game was a very late addition to the NES, and it was very, very ambitious, so the game is incredibly laggy. One thing that you'll notice when I use the Tornado ability is that like if I hit an enemy, Kirby will sort of pause in place for a little bit, but at the same time, if I don't kill any enemies, the game will just lag more. So it's sort of a balance between the two, sort of conflicting goals, I guess. What Cassio is doing in the corner is any percent. So in No Major Glitches, there are two glitches that are banned. One of which essentially allows you to keep UFO indefinitely. UFO is an extremely overpowered ability, and you'll see it a little bit later on in the run. And the other one is called Stone Glitch. So Stone Glitch, if you are underwater and not swimming, you can trigger, if you use stone underwater, for some reason the game will crash, but if you pause at literally like the exact frame that the game crashes, or maybe the frame before or something like that, you might trigger the credits. I like to emphasize might. But in order to do that, so what are glitches that are allowed in this category? Most forms of out of bounds. In fact, all forms of out of bounds. And so the specific out of bounds method that Cassio is going to be using is called slope clip. It's a sub-pixel perfect, double frame perfect trick where you jump for exactly one frame at some sub-pixel on a slope, and that allows you to clip out of bounds. So you need to do that, and then you need to do the stone glitch, which is frame perfect, might not work. So all that put together makes the 80% run, which is only 45 minutes, actually 45 seconds, actually very difficult to complete. Alright, this is Wispy. Pretty straightforward. Just one note about grabbing the Star Rod. Once you hit it, you lose control, and then Kirby will walk towards the center of the screen. So you want to minimize that walking time as much as possible. But sometimes the location of the Star Rod is not going to be in the center of the screen, so you need to do a little bit of sort of pre-movement towards the Star Rod. Yeah, so the first two worlds is just sort of straight tornado movement. I got bad luck on that enemy. So I have to do a little bit of a different route that ends with a cool bounce off the wall right there. So at the end of each of these stages, most of these stages are pretty short. At the end of each of these stages, there's a little bit of like what we call a goal game. And you want to hit it as early as possible, but if you're like a frame late, it's not a big deal at all. What you don't want to hit is the third possible frame. And that's, it's like the lowest possible like level 6 that you can get, and what happens is that Kirby will grab onto the ledge and climb it really slowly. So if that happens, you lose about 3/4 of a second. But since you can trigger that thing with both A and B, it's not so bad. So you just sort of flick your finger across both A and B button, trying to hit one of those first 2 frames. That lands you on level 7. Yeah, send all of your luck to Cassio right now. Don't don't give any of it to me. Just give it all to Cassio. Alright, so now we're coming up onto a non-major glitch. This is going to be the first type of out of bounds that you're going to see in the run. So if I run over this gap and crouch at just the right time, I go out of bounds. And this is just a little bit of a tornado movement while out of bounds. And this skips like 1.5 rooms. What the heck, did he actually finish a run? What was the time on it? Does anyone know? Good race, yeah. Dang, I lost by like 45 minutes. Dude, congrats to Cassio for finishing it. Personally, I've never finished a run of that category. Amazing. I was really like not expecting him to complete it. But yeah, GG's to Cassia. Well, good incentive. That was $100 well spent. I should know a little bit about speed preservation in this game. Something that makes just normal Kirby movement really interesting is that you don't lose speed in midair. So if you slide off a ledge, you're just going at that same sliding speed all the way down until you hit the ground. And each time you, like every frame that you're standing on the ground, you will lose a little bit of that speed. So if you're vanilla Kirby, the best thing to do is to bunny hop to preserve speed as much as possible. For that reason, also sliding as close to the ledge as possible is the best possible thing to do. Unlike most Kirby games where it's you don't get to preserve as much of the speed. Yeah, incredible. GG's, Cassia. Yeah, this is Paint Roller. There's actually not very much luck to this. Except I screwed up this fight anyways. Okay. Close enough. 4 cycle. Paint Roller will always go to the top right of the screen, so it's all up to you to kill it. There's a little bit of randomness in what Paint Roller draws, but besides that, there's not much. So now we're already on to World 3. So far, this has been identical to an 80% no major glitches run. The difference is what's going to be coming up in this very stage. Okay. So in this next room is going to be a switch, and I guess it's a little bit of a puzzle each time. Oh, nice clip. But the difference between 80% and 100% is just these switches. So there are, I think, 17 of them scattered throughout worlds 3 through 7. And if you hit all of them and beat the game, you get 100%. And so that one, you just go to that door and hit the switch. But other ones will require you to drop your ability. So the routing to that also prevents you from, like, certain abilities are required, so it prevents you from just keeping tornado as long as possible, but we'll get to that later. What's cool about butter building for like an NES game is these rotating rooms. I don't know, just really cool effect. Kind of Battletoads like, I guess. Sometimes we call these things auto mixes. I didn't do anything to stop the mix wheel, it just ran out on its own. And so when that happens, when you inhale those enemies, you're always going to get UFO. Because like I said earlier, UFO is a really overpowered ability. It's got already like fast movement, but more importantly, it really destroys bosses. But this was, developed with that in mind. So after you exit a stage, you will always drop your UFO ability. So the UFO glitch is something that tricks the game into thinking that Kirby's normal state is UFO, allowing you to keep it indefinitely. So because it's so overpowered, and once you activate the glitch, in my opinion, the movement and attacking is not that interesting. For that reason, this category bans that glitch. And I guess the reason why we switched to UFO in the first place is because for some mini-bosses that are able to grab you, you won't be able to use Tornado. Normally, you're kind of like invulnerable while you're in Tornado form, but if a mini-boss grabs you, it takes you out of your Tornado form. So that's why we switched to something like switch to UFO for in that instance. The ability I'm using is called high jump right now, so I'm going to do a little bit of juggling. Oh, that's not good. Okay, got through it. A little bit precise there. The way that works is that if you're standing on the ground, you can activate the high jump, and you can cancel it. This game was remade on the Game Boy Advance into Nightmare in Dreamland, which is a surprisingly not that well-known fact, I guess. The difference between that game's high jump and this one is that in that one, you can also activate in the air, and also the canceling animation also does damage. This one is just like a much weaker version of it. It's still pretty good. Yeah, I'd like to mention that, like, Invincibility Candy, a lot of times we skip it just because it's so laggy. Like, literally everything in this game lags, I swear. Like, all these little stars that show up, that's like 1 frame of lag, so on and so forth. But anyways. After killing Bonkers with a nice little double star strat, now we have the hammer ability. And by itself, it doesn't really have much, like movement options. But I guess it's really just like an extension of vanilla Kirby, except you can preserve your momentum a little bit better, because while in other Kirby games you often lose momentum when you swing your hammer, for this game you do not. In fact, in some instances it's actually faster to swing the hammer. But once again, we'll get to that later. Alright, so now we're coming up onto the second switch of the game. Just gonna swipe at it. That Sword Knight can be a little bit scary. I really do want to keep hammer for the upcoming boss. These dark rooms, that ghost that I just killed gives an ability called Light. But nothing ever changes, so as long as you've memorized the layout, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I think it's like a really unfortunate omission that the rotating rooms in Butter Building got replaced with like auto scrollers essentially in the Game Boy Advance remake. Alright, this is Shine Bright. This is a really dumb fight if you have hammer. You just swing it 3 times and it's over. Not really much to say about that one. we're now into World 4. This is where I think the difficulty ramps up considerably. You're gonna see some places where if you mess up, it's like run over kind of thing. Another, I guess, natural location of UFO. One thing about these UFO enemies is that once they go off screen or you defeat them, they disappear permanently unless you reset the game. It's really crucial that I grab it before it runs away. In this stage, it's not so crucial, but later on, there'll be a much harder instance of this. And this cool thing you can do with UFO is that you can just hit the switch with your beam attack. Switches in this game can be attacked, which is different from like pretty much every like the switches, for example, in Nightmare Dream cannot be attacked. And there's a little bit of optimization that goes into attacking switches. Another, just grab the natural tornado enemy at the end of 4-1 because I can't keep UFO anyways. This is a clip that I don't normally go for. Oh, I got it first try. Nice. Maybe I should go for it more often. It doesn't really save much time. You shortcut a tiny part of this room. And the reason why a lot of people, including myself, don't go for it normally in runs is because you clip from right to left, which is like a whole different muscle memory or whatever than all the other ones, where you clip from left to right. I think if you mess it up maybe twice, it's already losing time or something like that. In these worlds, so World 3 had 2 switches, this world will have 3 switches, and they go up to level 6 where they have every single stage has a switch. Oops, I have no idea where I am right now. That's fine. So far, the ones that we've seen, you could do it without abilities. Just small detours for now. Squeezing through this. Oh, okay. That one tile gap is kind of finicky to squeeze through with Tornado. Alright, so coming up in 4-4 is a really, really crucial mix. So some of the mixes that we've seen so far, the 2 enemies have converged pretty quickly. Pretty much the enemies are right next to each other, so it's easy to inhale both of them at the same time. Also, the timings for the mixes themselves have been pretty straightforward. I mean, one of them, you don't even need to do any timing, you just let it run out. If you're a fan of Wheel, this is the only time you're going to see it in the entire run. It's possibly not even faster than Tornado for this room. Anyways, this mix has hard execution on both fronts. Ah, I didn't get it. You only have one shot at it. Oh, I'm gonna run away. Ah, that's unfortunate. So the idea there was to combine those 2 enemies and mix for UFO. What's great is that if you mess it up and you're a little bit early in your timing, you lose over 20 seconds. Spark was the old way before people started doing mixes there. I think it's 6 seconds slower and also harder. I took that one really, really easy. Because what happens for that turtle boss is that if he grabs you, it's a really, really long animation. Yeah, just another quick mix. That one's... So there's that mix earlier for UFO that you just let it run out. Oh, crap. I don't like this pattern. And there's also mixes that end on the first ability. So the very first ability, you can actually buffer the stop mix input. And so in that sense, those are guaranteed as well. Yeah, slower and harder. Well, if you hit the mix. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. Alright, so now we're coming up onto another clip. Oh, okay, first try for that one as well. I'm going to go through this door. The actual exit is the door above me, but I need to hit a switch, so I need to make this detour. In the 80% run, I got good luck. In the 80% run, you just go straight up to that top door. And this one, I have to go through the light door, or the bottom door, fight the mini boss, go through this dark room, find this secret door, and then progress to the rest of this. Game's kind of mean that they put the light enemy after the door. So if you were to just use light here, nothing would happen. Like you wouldn't see anything. Yeah, so the reason why I say like this clip and like the previous one, or that goes from right to left, is more difficult, it's because you need to be in running speed in order to do the clip at all. And in those cases, you only have one tile to enter running speed. Essentially, you actually only have half a tile because that's where you clip. So you have half a tile to get into running speed. This is Krakow. The first two attacks that Krakow does is once again not random. I'm going to try to cancel, like high jump and then cancel carefully. Alright, I got what I think is a pretty good pattern here. And basically the whole point is that I just want to end up in the middle of the screen. So an attack where he does end up in the middle of the screen is fine. Alright, nice. A headbutt puts me right onto the platform. Oh, a little bit scary here. Alright, another mix here. This is kind of unintuitive because Tornado is actually not the best option for this room. It's actually much, much slower than the ability that comes right before Tornado, which is Ball. Oh. You... Alright, whatever. Down here is going to be the hidden switch. Yeah, what's nice is that you can actually like use your breath as an attack. So hitting that switch is a little bit faster rather than diving all the way down to the bottom of that little pool. Ah. Alright, coming up on 5-2 is a really neat momentum preservation strat. I want to preserve the speed of this tornado all the way into the water. It's a little bit scary with that sword knight swinging at you, but as long as you're in the right position, it's not too bad. There are a lot of different setups for that. The setup that I discovered, the one that I use was discovered by a runner named Rodband. You can see the lag from the Sparkies in full effect here. Yeah, mini bosses when you can use Tornado typically are not too difficult. Like that one, I pretty much just held right the entire fight. Previously, before this Tornado mix was was found to be faster, you would use an ability called Ball, which is not nearly as easy, I guess. Yeah. So instead of doing the intended thing, which is use high jump here, switch to wheel later, it turned out to be just faster to keep Tornado the entire time and float up slowly. I don't know, it's kind of disappointing to some extent that a lot of things in the route, especially the 80% no major glitches category, got replaced with more and more use of the Tornado, but it's just what happens in speedrunning sometimes. One thing I should know about Tornado is that even though it's a fixed time, if you hit a slope, for some reason you move a lot slower. Doesn't really come up too often, but in that stage, you both make use of that and also avoid that. Yeah. These Poppy Bros don't have hitboxes except in the apples, so that part's not actually that scary. Gotta do a little bit of a damage boost on these spikes. Yeah, the way that these arena fights work is that there are all sorts of enemies, and like there's a specific order in which they spawn in. So you have to defeat a certain enemy to get another one to spawn. So it's kind of like a tree of dependencies between these different enemies. Ball's a neat ability. Basically, once you're in the ball form, you're pretty much preserving your horizontal speed. And you also fall down and bounce up really fast. Oh, I missed the switch in this stage. Guess I have to do it again. Oh boy. This is not good. That's fine. Something looked wrong to me. So there's like a very specific speed that we, like horizontal speed that we want to move at, that makes all of this possible. Alright, we not miss the switch this time. There we go. Alright. Now I can just exit. Normally you can't exit stages. But since I've beaten it already, I can just exit it and it'll count as saved. Here I'm going to be using a strange property about the fire ability, which is that you actually do the attack when you inhale it. So I saved a little bit of time by using that attack to actually light the fuse for the cannon. There's a bunch of bunny hopping here. Alright, so now what's coming up is sometimes called acute angle skip. Normally this roof is solid, but these acute angle tiles allow you to clip. So now, All the stuff above me is considered inbound, so I really don't want to clip back inbounds and soft lock myself. So you have to go sort of really scarily in between the death plane and that inbounds portion. I don't know, some of the level design, it's like you enter a room and then like you're in some room, you enter another one, you come back out in the previous room. So what we've done is that we just skipped a little bit of a, like, essentially a mini boss fight. In this category, I believe it saves something like 12 seconds. Nice. I really need this. Run away. Okay. Another first frame or first ability mix.
It's a good time to plug a couple things.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just want to remind people that the current prize during this run is it's a Steam code for ukulele, so a minimum donation of $5 will put you in the running for that. As well as we do have incentives for the color dragon. But most importantly, I definitely want to see this Mega Man 2 randomizer run. Be $5.30 for that with a goal of 500, so definitely make sure to get those donations in, guys.
Ooh. Now I'm on heavy mold. This is a pretty random boss, but luckily got through it. Not too bad. Unfortunately, I lost quite a bit of time by having to redo 5-4, but that's okay. Now you're gonna see me swing this hammer underwater. For whatever reason, you actually do move faster horizontally if you swing the hammer. Makes no sense, but that's just how it is. No troll me? Okay. That hammer is just to unlock that area. Sometimes that Sparky can jump up and force you to create a mix. Luckily that Sparky behaved. Yeah. Tornado routing is especially important in this run, but burning routing is sort of an overlooked aspect, I'd say. Alright, in the secret room, I don't really know how people were able to find all the secret rooms. I guess those are like the Nintendo Power days. Like, some of these switches are so obtuse. I don't know how anyone found them. At the very least, the game tells you whether or not you still have a switch in a certain level. But man, even with that information, it's still not easy to find all of them. Yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna tank those hits. So these Kirby looking enemies are called Scarfies, and normally you don't, like, well, in most Kirby games they're not that big of a deal, but in this one they do create a lot of lag and hit lag if you hit them, so we want to avoid them as much as possible. Alright. Normally you'd use bonkers to hit this wooden crate here, but you can actually defeat it with a double star, which is what you get when you inhale 2 enemies. I don't know if this sequence break is intended, but once again we're going to use the fire attack. Normally you can't even use it underwater, but you can when you inhale it. The I guess intended way of doing that is to pick up laser from a different room and shoot the fuse that way. Oops, I didn't mean to have fire here, but that's okay. There's a little bit of manipulation that goes into these Scarfies that fly down from the ceiling. They do fly down to your current position, so you can use that knowledge to avoid them. A little bit unusual, I'm going to backtrack into this level. Pretty far in actually, like 14 seconds worth just to get this burning enemy. For a reason in the US version, burning is referred to as fireball, and no other Kirby game is referred to as fireball, even the remake. Alright, another clip here. This one's quite complex here. So I need to go through 2 of these narrow corridors. So this is one that I think is like really obtuse. In Nightmare in Dreamland it's a little bit easier to see, but this is just like some random tile. Fireball just makes the out of bounds portion of this clip a lot easier and also faster. And the idea is to keep Fireball all the way until... Whoops. Mixing up my movements. Yeah, so the idea is to keep Fireball into 6-6. It will save time of movement. Previously, before this backtracking for Fireball was implemented into the route, you would just use fire for a lot of these parts. It's a little bit harder to use burning here, but at the same time, you do get to defeat enemies a little bit more easily with it. Fireball is definitely a quality of life thing in the previous level with the out of bounds. Those thin chambers, like without Fireball, you have to float really, really carefully through them. And it's really easy to clip inbounds in either direction. And if you do, it's a lot of time lost. So one neat thing about Fireball is that you can break these blocks with it. For some reason, even though they're blocks of ice, you cannot break them using regular fire ability. Alright, so this is the tough UFO room. I guess I'll just take UFO. The important thing is that I keep UFO to the end of this room. But it's really easy to, since there's like a big abyss below you, it's easy to lose your star into that. And also, these enemies don't respawn. Luckily, none of them trolled me, so I'm through with UFO all the way until the end of this level. So that double Frosty mini boss is like completely trivial with UFO. And this arena fight with all the ice physics essentially negated, becomes a lot easier as well. Alright, full health going into the boss. Now, this is Meta Knight. I'm gonna try to sneak a hit while he's jumping down at me. Meta Knight has quite long iframes. And he can also block at random. But perhaps the more annoying thing is just the fact that he'll run straight into you. Luckily that fight actually went really well. Except for maybe a couple of blocks. Just gonna bounce a few lasers and kill some enemies to reduce lag. Alright. And now out of these blocks we're gonna manufacture one of these one tile gaps so we can do a clip on them. So this room is like super laggy and super slow if you don't go out of bounds. This part right here is of particular trouble, I guess. We're just gonna go out of bounds straight into the switch room. Once again, it's a secret hidden room that you're supposed to know about. But what does, it brings you like halfway up the battle tower. And hammer is good for these mini bosses. What we want is that we want Turtle to do the pattern he just did. Bugsy to do this pattern. And now Fire Lion to jump up into the ceiling. Should be good, yeah. And instead of taking burning from Fire Lion, we're actually just gonna run with hammer. So overall, the luck in the battle tower is pretty good. One thing about the secret door is that the bosses are actually more aggressive, which actually works in our favor for the kind of setups that we're doing. Oops. Alright, I just want to try this once. Nice, okay. So now we have Tornado, which makes this room is incredibly annoying without Tornado, but it looks really stupid without it, with Tornado. The way that slopes work is that, okay, sure, you get like a great speed boost if you're running down a slope, but if you run into a slope on a ceiling, it completely kills your momentum. But getting up to that room without it is quite annoying. This is a pretty recent strat that was found by a long-time runner of this game named Escher. And that just makes 7-3 way smoother. It is a mix, but luckily I was able to get it right first try. Oops. Now, Tornado is not very good for rooms like this because you can't break these blocks with Tornado. One little trick here is that while you're inhaling something, you're invulnerable. Just getting past that little Brontober enemy. Alright. Pretty smooth room with Fireball. Now we're going to 7-5. We're going to be catching one of these crash bombs, so just a flashing lights warning. So this mini boss just dies straight to one hit of crash. Alright, flashing lights warning over. It's just a neat little strat for getting past this like vertical currents room. Without that strat, that room is quite a pain. Alright, now we're on to... This is like a bonus 2-in-1. You get Kirby's Dream Land as well. Basically just like nicely routed burning throughout these rooms. There have been new ideas which involve keeping the tornado all the way with the... oh, I can't believe I survived that. All the way through this level. All the way until deity, but I haven't really thought too carefully because it is kind of annoying to do. Alright, the end of this is the moon. Whoops. Doesn't matter. That's going to be quite laggy. So, once again, another hidden door. And that should be the last switch in the game. We'll see. I really hope it is the last room. Oops. Okay, once it starts fading out, I can reset. Alright, 96. That should be all the switches. So the reset is just to set up this RNG manipulation. All sorts of things like bouncing off the ground and inhaling all advanced RNG. So I'm looking for a very specific seed, I guess. All these bounces do affect RNG. And so if I've done this manipulation correctly, Deity for most of this fight will just stand in place. And so I can just use the ball at the edge of his hitbox. Up until the last hit, but not a big deal. And one last thing, when D crashes on the floor, normally you lose control, but if you stay in control by floating or by ducking, like crouching, you can actually get the fade out to trigger 1 second earlier. What's funny is that this property is also in Nightmare in Dreamland. Yeah, not much randomness to this fight. A little bit of variation in the patterns, but for the most part the attacks always come out in the same order. Alright, good. You know, it's possible to get this cutscene to screw up and then it costs you like 3 minutes. It's really good for that to happen, like that glitch to happen when you're on a really good pace. Alright, so once again, this is now Nightmare. Once again, like not much variation. The attacks are pretty much the same, but sometimes the spawn locations and when he does, like how long it takes for him to do attacks is a little bit random. A little bit of an audio cue to start the fight. Alright, time's coming up on the 6th hit. This is gonna be 4th. That's 4. Now he dances around. Ah, just slightly too early. That's 5. Alright, time's coming up soon. And it's 6. Time. My timer, I got 50:36.
Yep, 50:36. GG. Nice run.
Alright, thank you. Yeah, besides that, that switch I missed, like most things went fairly smoothly.
Looked really solid. A lot of first try clips. That was sick.
Yeah, Cassio beat me by 45 minutes in this race, so GG's to Cassio.
What a god.
Yeah, what a god gamer.